Now, Simon, I wonder if this makes any sense to you, because it doesn't really to me, but you know more on a subject like this than I do. Roman Abramovich, his life changed dramatically when the UK government sanctioned him recently. And then we've seen him hopping on and off private planes to Moscow, to Israel, to here, there and everywhere. Now we hear that the same Roman Abramovich will get the final say over the future of Chelsea by choosing the next owner. We know there are 4 bidders in the final mix. The Chicago Cubs owners, the Ricketts family, a consortium comprising of LA Dodgers part owner Todd Bewley, a consortium led by former British Airways chairman Sir Martin Broughton and Boston Celtics co-owner Stephen Pagliuca. But I mean, Abramovich in there giving the final thumbs up. This seems weird to me. He will prioritise the future guardianship of the club. Should it be him?
Well, I suspect it's the last act of the tragic end of his ownership. Now, if you've got 4 bidders and all of those 4 bidders meet the prerequisite criteria of whatever involvement the government have, and the least involvement the government have, the better. The sanction is one thing. Understanding the commercial reality of what Chelsea has to become, what the next ownership model looks like, and ticking all the boxes. Yes, they should have some input, the government, because they're the ones that have sanctioned the business. It is still owned. It's a business owned by Roman Abramovich, which has been sanctioned by the government.
Yes.
So who else? Okay, where's the intellect? Because it certainly isn't coming from the sports minister, and it certainly isn't coming from the DCMS, who pick the ideas up from other people. Who is going to determine, knowing the parameters, that the government will only accept certain things? This business comes out of sanction with the government's blessing. So who would be more equipped to understand the Chelsea Football Club than the biggest benefactor it's ever had in its history?
So he's the right man, in your view, undoubtedly the right man.
He can't, I suspect, unreasonably withhold his consent. That's the first thing. Have all 4 bidders pass the sniff test? If they have, it's academic who chooses them in the end, because if they've all passed the sniff test, all meet the criteria, and all have an ability to take the football club forward in the best possible fashion, considering all the factors in play, which is the ownership model, what's happened previously, the running of the football club going forward, where the fans are in the equation, everything else, right? The only criteria would be that you cannot allow there to be any commercial sort of scenario where there's a buyback option. Now, I can't imagine any of that would ever fall into the mix, because the government wouldn't approve it.
I don't expect that to happen. But Simon, surely Abramovich's interest in Chelsea ended when he was sanctioned by the UK government. In other words, he was given a whopping red card himself.
He was sanctioned based upon world events. He wasn't sanctioned by the very nature of his best interest of Chelsea Football Club. Whatever I think of Roman Abramovich, and I think he was a dark force for English football. I think English football didn't grow organically. I think it changed dramatically with Abramovich, then Sheikh Mansour, and possibly even the argument could be made a little bit of Jack Walker, where the football finances didn't grow organically. They just got bought and paid for, and up went the inflation, up went player salaries, up went player transfers, and no real sustainability in the game. But his influence over Chelsea, up until this point of the Ukraine war, would anybody turn around and say, well, let's question Roman Abramovich and his utter commitment to Chelsea Football Club and all things that are good for it, from their youth development policy through to the desire to rebuild the stadium, through to the unequivocal investment like no one had ever seen before. That would normally be in the sort of dystopian, utopian world of what a football club owner should look like, in certain people's minds, which is a bit warped, is that he will give you whatever he's got. So you can't argue that he's got that in principle. He's been sanctioned, but he still owns the club. So it's going to need him to sign it off. But he's not going to be able to withhold his consent. And if the 4 bids all meet a criteria, it's kind of academic, isn't it?
Well, I suppose so. But, I mean, it's not the easiest of choices, is it? I mean, it's not as simple as Roman Abramovich sitting down saying 1, 2, 3, 4 bidders. Okay, who's bid the most? Give it to them. It's not as simple as that by any stretch. But
that's where the government's weights and measures will come in, I suspect. But the conflict, I mean, you can argue, what people can argue if they want to make this argument, he's morally conflicted as an individual. So if he's morally conflicted and part of the purchase of this football club has morals attached to it, then is he the right person to have that judgment call?
There you go.
Well, with that in mind, you could argue that going back preceding the Ukraine war, because Vladimir Putin hasn't been a hero for anybody for a long time, has he?
No.
We can look at the Salisbury poisonings, we can look at the dynamics of what the Russians have been doing for years, and we can turn around and say his association was always flawed. But we were happy if this hadn't have happened and Roman Abramovich was selling the football club to someone else. We wouldn't be saying to them, hang on a second, he's got a relationship with Putin, and Putin is a ratbag, so he shouldn't have the opportunity to sell to someone else. He's not selling it. He's not getting any of the proceeds. He and the intellectual capital that have been running the football club, which is Buck and whoever else is there, Eugene and so on and so forth. And Eugene Tenenbaum are going to sit there and they're going to make a decision, and the government are going to go, Yeah, that fits all the criteria.
So
you don't want the government making it. For the love of God, you don't want the government making it.
Okay, so as the seller then, how does he make his decision? How does he make his choice? You've been there, Sammy. You know what it's like to be at the top of a club. Now, if you were doing this, and it's pretty darn hard to look at it, do you think the Ricketts family is logically still in it?
Well, look,
with the adverse press they've got.
Well, not knowing.
It seems that Todd Bewley, who turned up recently to the first leg against Real Madrid, he is desperate to get his hands in it.
You can pick apart all of these if you want to. You can put each one of these. You can put Sebastian Coe's relationship with certain parties in the past. You can look at his association with Nike and the Nike Oregon Project and Salazar and all kinds of things and say, not sure about that. You can look at all of these businesses and all of these bids and say, well, there's something about each one of them that doesn't pass a sniff test if you want to make it that way. Or you can look at them and say, the 4 bids have been whittled down for however many people were kicking tyres and got to the point where these are the money. The money's in the room. Okay, which one of them has pitched the best woo? Because the one thing you can't control probably is what they end up actually doing.
Once you get it.
Once you get it, yeah.
So can you second guess? I know I'm asking you to be Abramovich for a second, which is a hell of a thought. Can you second guess it? I think Bewley, the LA Dodgers part owner Todd Bewley, they have been in from the start. He's constantly mentioned. He's in and about Stamford Bridge. He's not afraid to be visible in it all. He's kept quiet. That's key.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, does it go in their direction? Do you want to try, or is it possible to try?
All of it is American money. All of it, from what I can see, is funded by a proportion of debt. So the football club is falling straight into the territory that Manchester United are in, which is there's going to be some debt in there some way or another, because people aren't, irrespective of what people are suggesting, this is a commercial discussion based upon the owning of a legitimate brand. It has benefits of association. It also has benefits of return on investment.
Yeah.
So Chelsea are going to have to pay back some of this money to the investors that put into this framework. Look, it's going to be an American owner, and an American ownership model in English football sometimes looks a bit ugly and looks a bit motivated by an agenda which doesn't like relegation, doesn't like anything that vaguely resembles our pyramid system. And that's why you see people that like Bob Kraft, that never bought English football teams because they didn't want to get relegation as part of their business model. Yeah. I mean, I know Daniel Levy falls into that category as well, but that's a different dynamic. They are what they are. I mean, the Ricketts have put themselves in an invidious position because of the utterings of their father 10, 12 years ago. I'm not sure that's entirely relevant in today's age, but it will be made relevant, I suspect.
Sure.
Look,
we'll know next week.
It'll be an American model.
Yes.
It'll be an American model. That's what we can be safe on.
And one of those American models goes in front of the government next week to get government approval. And then we'll know who owns Chelsea.
Jim White and Simon Jordan, Monday to Thursday morning, 10 till 1. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.